folks, welcome to Jewel Guitars. I'm sitting here with one of my all-time idols of all times, Mr. Richard Hoover. Now, I got to tell you, I've been selling colorants to Santa Cruz for I don't know how many years, but I just started building guitars maybe about 10, got back into it about 10 years ago. But his guitars have just always blown me away. So anyways,
thank you.
About a year ago, I think it was, maybe a couple of years ago, a guy contacted Richard and a bunch of us other people and says, I've been pulling this really interesting wood out of these rivers in South Carolina. It's ancient sinker cypress. We've carbon dated some of them to 4,000 years old. I go, I got to try this stuff. So I thought, well, if I get this stuff, I got to talk to Richard. So I think we contacted you, and he was so nice. He probably had 100 things going on at the same time. While he was going to pick somebody up, I think at the airport, he called me, and we talked for about a half an hour. But we've known each other for a long time. So anyways, I wanted Richard to see my finished version of it, which is a double O, 14 fret, short scale, with the ancient cypress top, Ziricoti bridge, Ziricoti head plate, Ziricoti all over the place. And now this is something I bet you didn't know.
Ooh.
We used wild grain East Indian rosewood, but with my art background and all that stuff, I really don't like that purpley kind of color that you get with East Indian.
That's exceptionally pretty.
So we chemically treat it to bring that color out.
Did you bring enough for the whole class?
You can go buy it down the street. It's called CLR. It's
for
calcium lime
lime
rust remover. It's phosphoric acid.
Wow.
So it's been used by a lot of people to remove the calcium deposits in rosewood for years.
How about that? I use a glacial acetic acid, an old phonochemical for that, and I'm afraid of it. Now that's,
Well, you should be.
Yeah, that's you're not supposed to touch it. Only
Well,
I do. That's a great one. Thank
no,
you.
but it's you can just wipe it around with your hands. I mean, it's
then it also gives it a color?
It changes the color to almost the color of Brazilian rosewood.
It does. It
Look at that.
really threw me. That's
So,
beautiful.
anyways.
That's very fantastic.
So I wanted Richard to hear this guitar because I was shocked at
Yeah.
So,
No,
great.
I'm not going to play in front of anybody.
Okay.
I've been playing guitar for 60 years. People think I'd be really good. So let's have them believe that.
Okay.
Let's keep it that way.
Well, I'll do a little thing there.
Yeah, plus it's easier to listen over here.
Bass E. Just, I'm feeling it in my C6 or whatever that C10 down there.
That's where
It's
your
a
soul is, yeah.
That's my sympathetic harmonic. Okay.
That certainly worked, didn't it?
It did.
Mm-hmm.
It's a perfect finger picking couch guitar. I think it's just got kind of. It's not dry and woody like an old Gibson LOO. And then this is my own body shape. What I did.
It's a great body shape.
Well, I took the templates for a Martin 00 and a Gibson LOO, and I married them. So I pinched in the waist, rounded the bottom,
it looks like
but left the top flat.
a real guitar. That's
Yeah.
really
A little
pretty. I
Venetian
love your
cutaway.
aesthetic too.
You like the tiled mosaic?
Oh yeah, I do a lot.
Well, I'm sure you are the same problem I do, which is I can't throw away a nice piece of wood. So it goes tossed into a big tray. And
when I
then,
tried to take kindling home for the fireplace, my sweetheart's like, not that one,
not that one.
not that one.
So what we do is to, I'm not real fond of the natural look of mahogany.
It's natural
I tone
mahogany is people go, what kind of wood is that? Because they expect, we call mahogany that nice nutty brown stained look.
Right,
And you're right, plain looks unripe.
Yeah,
doesn't
I
look
don't like
cooked
it.
yet.
Yeah, I don't like it. So we didn't actually stain the wood. We toned it with my product, the Trans Tint, and then we just kind of spray it on in a kind of a sunburst type of thing.
Oh, that's really, really
Yeah.
pretty. And I love your,
It's an extension of the
symbiosis
back.
there, yeah,
An
it very
extension of the
much is.
back. Yeah.
And, those are the little elements that lead your eye. You don't really stop and think and describe it, but the stuff that makes you comfortable, and to not do those kind of things, it just doesn't look as expensive. Those things add up to make it look elegant, thoughtful, desirable.
Yeah. It for me, it's just continuity.
Yeah.
And for instance, like, when we were picking out the woods for the tiled rosette, we tried to stick with the same color, underlying
That's
color
very
of
very
this wood, because
complimentary, yeah.
well, this wood is very complex in its coloring. I
Because
mean, it's
those
got
colors are in there, and that's awesome. What
Yeah.
is that? Is that tinted?
what we do is we take maple and we stick it in a little Pyrex dish with Trans Tint, and we pull a vacuum on it.
Oh, yeah.
So we get a lot of the color to go through, but then as you sand it again, it kind of starts to bring some of the natural wood color
I
back.
see that. Looks
and
like
you can see it.
It looks like
So it
it's
almost looks like it
glowing.
was, what sand shading is? It's marquetry in the old days. They used to take pieces of veneer and put it in hot sand to scorch it
Oh, wow.
to give it a little darker edge. It's
Uh-huh.
called sand shading. So
I like
that's what we
that.
kind of do here.
We've got that set up for, doing binding bits to bend it, like they used to do eyeglasses that way.
Yeah, they used to. And I don't have a CNC, so everything is done by hand. So all this is inlaid. Everything
That's so
is done by hand.
nice. That's very
So
complimentary.
the last story I wanted to tell you was when you were at Gallup Guitars, I think back in 2017, you told us how you got onto the Plek
Yeah.
machine. And you got onto it because you wanted to save your employees' hands.
Our
because
most valuable asset, yeah.
Yeah, and so anyway, I couldn't afford a Plek machine.
Yeah.
But I got this idea that, like, I go, if I got really good at fretting, there was like in the 80s, there was this thing that somebody dreamed up, which was, let's see if the IBM Watson computer can beat a chess player.
Oh, I was going
It
to
was
say
called,
guitar maker.
it was a IBM
Yeah, I remember
computer
that.
called Watson.
I remember that.
And
yeah.
they paired it against the Russian guy, I forget his name, but
Kasparov.
Kasparov.
Yeah.
And it was 3 draws. Nobody could do it. So I got this crazy idea, we should do this, who can beat the Plek? A human being that can beat the Plek. So when I was at Gallup Guitars last
That's
summer,
very good.
about a year ago, one of the Plek guys was there, and I said, I think I do a pretty good fretting job, so we put it on the Plek machine. I tied it. I got a draw
that's great.
on the Plek machine. I didn't beat it, but we tied. And so the guy who was there, he goes, we don't see that very often.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah.
most people don't understand how the string really works like you do.
No.
And to match that, the geometry of the string movement with the shape of the board is key. And most people, like, the string doesn't move straight up and down, that'd be a dream, nor does it move like a really long ellipse, which is what the truss rod does. So, you know as well as I the advantages of that. But to shape the board first, then put the frets on and take very little off the tops of the frets. The playability is exquisite, and yeah, I would be proud of our practice
sure,
setup people in that regard to do it. But and this none of this to negate what you said. Good on you that you did that. Is that it takes a long time to get that good, like you did.
Well, your risks pay for it
Well,
eventually. They
it's
do.
it's a genetic predisposition. Some people can do the work all their life. Some people in 2 months
In 2
can
months
be
are
crippled,
suffering.
right?
Yes, absolutely.
So the irony of this, it takes a long time to learn, and by that time somebody could be hurt, which is totally unethical.
Oh,
to
it's
do,
well, it's
yeah.
unacceptable. Absolutely. If I were an employer, I just couldn't do it.
I would love to have them. I'd love them to learn that way, so they understand what they're doing and they're not depressive. Because the pluck machine is kind of like a really nice chisel, you know? In the wrong hands, you could bleed out or really wreck a lot of stuff.
Really wreck a lot of stuff, for sure.
Yeah, I'm proud of you. That's great.
Oh, good. Well, I just,
Frank Ford was another guy like that, rest his soul. That,
Yeah.
you know, he understood that stuff as a Luther, as a scientist, and you know, practicing for 50 years. And Joe Glazer was always impressed. Yeah, he doesn't need, you know, he knows what to do.
He knows what to do.
Yeah.
Well, again, thanks
Thank
for
you.
taking the time out to
Oh,
just
yeah.
look at this thing and, yeah, I mean,
I'm just fascinated with this wood. Now,
Me too.
It doesn't act like it wasn't predictable. The final sound of it wasn't completely predictable, and it's fun. It's fun to have that kind of challenge and variety. You know, Rick Bartow's done a lot of work with networking with the different builders that are using this, and you know, our own modal analysis to get a feel for it. There's several different eras that it comes out of, you know, from like 400 to 4,000 years old, and we've got a lot to learn, but that sounds good.
well, it was surprising to me because when I got the sets in, I'm sort of like an old school, okay, because I started building in the 80s, so I start tapping right
You're
away.
old.
Yeah, we're about the same age. I turned 70 this year, or actually
Good
last
job.
month. Yeah, good job.
Damn kids.
I love that. Good job. Way to go.
It's against all odds, you know. that
Against
you
all
do
odds,
that.
for me it was.
Uh-huh.
Anyways, when I got the wood in, you know, I did my normal luthier thing. You know, I start flexing it, smelling it, feeling it. So I threw out all my preconceptions about the way I build guitars. And
That's
I've
good to
always
do.
built with a passive back. So I built with an active back. I took this back down to about 77.077, really super thin. Okay?
What passive means, it's not a factor, and
It's
you're
more or
doing-
less just kind of just pushing everything to the top.
okay.
Okay? Whereas an active back is actually making resonant frequencies, which are
I
involved
see.
in the total
And-
color of the
and
guitar.
then you really stiffen it up with your.
That's a Jeff
architect.
Trougett. Jeff Trougett
That's great. Yeah,
design.
I,
okay?
that's where I saw it first.
And
excuse me.
so that's what I did to stiffen up the back. Just long term, it
Mm-hmm.
will keep this from caving in. But as far as the top goes, I almost always use Adirondack for
Mm-hmm.
the X brace, just stiffness, strength, and all that. You know, the usual thing. So I said, well, I'm going to use something soft and more pliable. So I used Sitka, and I thinned it. I rather than a 1/4 inch brace, I'm down to about less than
Oh,
that, a little
thin,
bit
okay.
less. Yeah, thick. So they're thick. And then I did not push the X brace into the linings.
Oh,
I whittled them down like tone bars.
so it's more a diaphragm, like
Yes,
like
it's more like a speaker
violin
cone.
recurve
Yeah.
right here.
Well, yeah, so the sweet spot of the guitar right here is moving around, you know. It's excited by the bridge, but it's allowed to move around a little bit. And then I have another device. It's a magnetic thickness meter. So I can come in and measure the various
Yeah,
thicknesses at the
that's
top.
great. Uh-huh.
So this is about 95. I took it down and tapered down to about 80, 82. So I've got a tapered edge top, so it's more like a speaker cone,
Yeah. Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
But it works better.
It works better.
Yeah.
A little bit more dynamic. So anyways, that's the story behind
That's
it. And-
really nice work.
But
I
I'm
love
just-
your aesthetic.
Yeah, well, I'm just, you know, to me, I mean, as I said, you know,
I learned 2 very cool things here today. I
uh-oh.
learned more, but I don't know what it is yet. But the coloration for the Indian
The
rosewood,
coloration for the
uh,
Indian rosewood.
the vacuum impregnation of that, and the sand thing.
Good.
yeah. Yeah,
I figured this was stuff you all knew about anyways, but, so anyways, I want to thank you again for your time. That's,
Oh, hey,
really cool.
that's what it's all about.
but
you
we're
know.
all friends here too. You know,
We're,
everybody that builds guitars, even the big guys and the small guys, there's no secrets, hopefully.
Well, you know, there really isn't. Most things you can figure out if you have enough experience, but people that think they're an advantage from keeping secret have it absolute backwards. When you share, you get rich. You can't give things away, you get back a great return. And what we're trying to overcome is now, I don't know why the guild system existed, and it may have been for some life or death advantage, but one person teaching one person that teaching one person versus what's happened with us for the last 50 years where everyone shares information, and the level of seal string guitar is advanced crazy over that
It
time.
has.
Yeah.
Everybody
all make better
benefits.
guitars.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we all
And
benefit.
in fact, the big companies do too, even if whether they admit it or not. We've been a huge influence on them.
Oh, you couldn't get information out of like Martin Guitar 30 years ago if you called them up and say, hey, what kind of lacquer are you using? I mean, what? We don't divulge that. And I think the guy that pioneered that sharing of information, you probably know this, I think, in my opinion, was Bob Taylor.
Well, you know what? Bob's a dear friend, and I'm really proud of the things he's done. But he's got a much bigger bullhorn
Well,
than the rest of us. And so I'm going to say there's two things there. Not that I don't want to take any credit away from Bob, because what they're doing is fantastic. But simultaneous discovery, when an idea is right, like a light bulb or a car or a flying machine, it comes up all around the world. And, it's discussions that we've had, Bob and I've had since we were like early 20s in that regard. So, since we don't use that as a marketing thing, I'll just leave it at that. It's the right way to do it, and Bob's exemplary
Well,
in that regard.
as I said, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, yeah,
appreciate
this
it.
is a blast. Anytime, anytime.
Okay,
We'll
cool.
do that. I'm sure glad I got to hear and see this.
Oh, me too. Me too. It's been a highlight of my trip here.
May everything go your way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Vaya con Dios o sin él si quieres.
Igualmente.
You know what that means.
Por supuesto.